Well, good morning. It's Brent Adams here with your Real Strong Morning Ag Report for Steve Shetler Media on this Friday, September 1st. Can you believe it? September 1st already, the 244th day of the year, and we put a bow on Farm Progress Show 2023, and I invite you to check out our coverage on Tractors and Troubadours, the podcast, found at ruralstrongmedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We hear from U.S. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack, American Farm Bureau Federation President Zippy Duval, and Eric Hansotia, who is the Chairman, President, and CEO of AGCO, the parent company of Fendt, Massey Ferguson, Gleaner, Precision Planting, and others. We talk a lot about the state of the agriculture industry this week. Also have some new music on there from Mackenzie McKetty, a great Clarksville creative sound recording artist, and her label mate, Evie May, performed here this week. We have a conversation with her on that episode too, which is episode 95. So we hope you'll join us for those. We hope you've enjoyed these ag reports this week. We are going to keep those moving forward and be back with you again next week on those. But for now, here's the news. Well, Hurricane Idalia made landfall in parts of Florida and Georgia earlier this week, but what is the legacy of the storm? USDA Radio's Rod Bain is here with the details.
A historic hurricane was Idalia, according to USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey, in that
this is the first major hurricane to make a landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida since reliable records have been kept, and certainly in the satellite era, which goes back to the 1960s. This area, which is kind of lies between the peninsula of Florida and the panhandle of Florida, has been relatively immune from significant hurricane strikes
until this week's landfall of Idalia, at the time a Category 3 hurricane. Despite damage and reports of fatalities,
it was a relatively small hurricane as it moved ashore. Hurricane force winds only extended outward about 25 miles either side of the center of the storm. And so that left a fairly narrow swath of hurricane force winds that extended across northern and north central Florida and into southeastern Georgia before the system decayed and became a tropical storm.
Idalia now out to sea in the Atlantic Ocean and not expected to reform.
Well, the USDA has a new farm income forecast for this year. More from USDA Radio's Gary Crawford.
After a record high income year in 2022, farmers this year will see profits declining. USDA's out with its new income forecasts, and for example,
net cash farm income is forecast to fall to about $149 billion. That's about a 27% drop from 2022.
USDA economist Carrie Litowski says that decline's mostly due to three things:
lower cash receipts, lower government payments, and higher production expenses.
Cash receipts forecast down about 4%, government payments down 19%. On the production expense side, last year, expenses went up 15%, or about $56 billion. Carrie says for this year,
they're forecast to increase another 7%, or almost $30 billion.
But even with farm incomes projected down, Carrie says as far as the health of the farm economy,
the outlook is positive.
Yes, farm debt levels are rising, but the value of farm assets like land growing faster. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
What does the USDA's first fiscal year 2024 forecast for agricultural exports look like? Here again is Rod Bain.
USDA's first look at U.S. ag export forecast for fiscal year 2024 indicates
we are forecasting our exports to be $172 billion. This is down $5.5 billion from last year.
Sean Arita of the Office of the Chief Economist says if realized,
that would be about $24.1 billion lower than that banner year set in 2022. But keep in mind that that was a record year. In fact, this year, at $172 billion will still mark us as having the third highest year of exports.
The year-over-year reduction is largely driven by lower exports of soybeans and soybean meal.
Soybeans, we are forecasting $26.5 billion, attributed to lower expected U.S. production forecast, tighter supply conditions relative to last year. There's competition from South America, and we also have high domestic crush demand.
And dairy products. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Also this morning, the U.S. Drought Monitor to end August reflects how heat in two areas of the nation drove a month-over-month increase in drought coverage. Here again is Rod Bain.
The end of meteorological summer, August 31st, shows 34% of the contiguous 48 states in drought, up 6% from the beginning of August and up 19% in May, when U.S. drought coverage was at its lowest for the year. USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says
it is interesting that most of our deterioration during the month of August occurred across either the southern tier of the country or the far northern tier of the country.
a hot month in the deep south stretched from New Mexico to the central Gulf Coast.
Heat combined with near record to record dryness leading to very rapid drought intensification across that portion of the country.
While in the north,
we did see deterioration from the Pacific Northwest eastward into the upper Midwest, some of the worst deterioration occurring right along the Canadian border, particularly across northern Montana and northern North Dakota.
I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, for more than 50 years, U.S. farmers were dominant in the international corn market, far and away shipping more corn than anyone else to help feed the world's stockpiles and manufacture food. According to a Bloomberg article, that's no longer the case. In the agricultural year that ended August 31st, the U.S. gave up that top spot in corn exporting to Brazil, and it might not be coming back in the near future. In the 2023 harvest year, Brazil will dominate the world's corn exports at 32%, well ahead of the 23% of corn shipped by the U.S. into the export market. America has only dropped out of the top spot once, doing so in 2013 because of a severe drought. Losing the lead in corn exports may unfortunately be familiar to U.S. producers who lost the top spot in soybean and wheat exports during the last 10 years. And finally this morning, downsizing in the U.S. and Canadian cattle herds continued through the first half of 2023. All cattle and calves in the United States and Canada combined to total 108 million head on July 1st, 2023, down 3% from the 111 million head on July 1st, 2022. All cows and heifers that have calved at 43.4 million head were down 2% from last year. All cattle and calves in the United States totaled 95.9 million head on July 1st, 2023, down 3% from July 1st, 2022. All cows and heifers that have calved at 38.8 million head were down 2% from a year ago. All cattle and calves in Canada as of July 1st, 2023 totaled 12.2 million head, down 1% from the 12.3 million head on July 1st of last year. All cows and heifers that have calved totaled 4.62 million head, down 1% from last year. And again, one last time from Decatur, Illinois, Farm Progress Show 2023, it's Brent Adams. I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. Enjoy it, be safe, and we'll see you next week here on Steve Shetler Media. Have a great weekend, everybody.